So we are going to be recording the meeting for some of the members who couldn't make it today, but wanted to hear to this at their convenience. So I think, yeah, that out of the way. Yeah. So once again, good morning to.
Is it?
Hey, Praveen, did you say something?
Yeah, I was asking, I'll be waiting for more people or
no, I think we can get started. So we would probably be expecting 4 or 5 more people, but I think we are already some 5 minutes late. So I'll start off with the introduction and maybe let them join when they do. Cool. So once again, good morning. Thank you for being here on a lovely Saturday morning. So this is the second of our masterclass series at All Things SaaS. So a little context to both Praveen and some of the people who are joining us for the first time here is, so masterclass is an initiative that we brought in a couple of months ago at All Things SaaS. Basically, in addition to the sessions that Mukil and I run with our usual cohorts, we figured that it would be very relevant and helpful if you actually heard from veterans in the SaaS industry who are experts in their own niche, right? So that's how we got started with Roshan Karyappa from Waymo. And we started off with a masterclass on enterprise marketing, right? And one of the insights or something that actually Roshan himself suggested was, rather than run through something like a slide deck or a presentation where the speaker comes in with their own set of views, right? That may not necessarily translate to the whole group, especially considering the members at All Things SaaS come from a very wide-ranging background. So he suggested that we do something like an AMA instead, right? So where we basically tap into the speaker's expertise, and it doesn't have to be restricted to 10 slides on a deck, right? Rather, a lot of us would have very specific questions about how a particular function is run, how it is scaled, and how it is optimized and everything. So each of us might have our own questions, and an AMA would allow us to go about doing that in a freewheeling manner rather than confined by presentation, right? So I think we'll follow. A lot of people came back to us and said they really enjoyed the format, and we have conveyed the same to Praveen as well. So once again, following in the footsteps of our first masterclass, there is not going to be any slide decks or presentation from Praveen's end. Instead, just feel free to ask anything you want to do. I think now is a good time to introduce Praveen himself, right? So Praveen started out his career in a typical fashion with Infosys, which is a pretty common background for a lot of us, studying in India, right? So he was the team lead there, and he went to the UK for some time. So this was in the late 2000s, and then he came back to India, and he started something called Tute Circle, which is basically an online learning platform for these aptitude tests, right? So I think in a way it was basically your Byju's or Vedantu, but something that was probably way ahead of its time when Praveen first started it in around 2009 and 10, right? And somewhere a few years later, around 2015, 2016, so he co-founded Klenty with one of his close friends and college mate, Vengat, right? So Klenty is basically a SaaS product targeted for the salespeople. So it is a product in the sales engagement category. So for context, Outreach is a popular tool that a lot of you might be aware of, which operates in the same league as Klenty, right? So he's the co-founder there, and he also leads the sales function there. And so there are a couple of reasons why I brought up Praveen's name when we were discussing this internally. We checked off enterprise marketing of the list. So next up, we wanted someone to bring in and talk about sales and how does it look for an SMB product. And the reason is, so first of all, interesting coincidences. I worked at Klenty, so that's where I began my career. And technically, Praveen was one of my bosses. So firsthand, I know how nice a guy he is, right? So I was part of the marketing team, but I used to ask questions about sales and how the function is run and everything. And he never really shied away from answering anything, and he was always helpful on that front, right? So I've seen him go out of his way to do that. That is one. And when I joined Plenty, the team was about 11 or 12 people. And now it has grown to, I think, some 80 plus members or something in just 1.5 years, right? So it's some phenomenal growth, and large part of it is down to the sales engine that they have, right? So I'll probably let Praveen touch upon that as well before we get into the session. And Klenty is one of those bootstrap startups that you don't really hear about even within the Chennai ecosystem, where a lot of other names are often talked about. But Klenty kind of operates, for a startup that's been around for 5 or 6 years, it still looks like it's operated in stealth, right? Because that's the way that Praveen and Venkat have gone about building the company. So apart from the obvious expertise in running a sales function and scaling it and building a playbook around it, so Praveen's thoughts around leadership, man management, team building. So I think there is a lot for us to learn on that front as well. So feel free to touch upon those topics as well if you're looking for anything on that front. So it doesn't have to be restricted to sales. Right? So yeah, I think with that I'll leave the floor to Praveen to give a quick introduction.
Yeah. Thanks, both Krishna and Mukul for first inviting me for this session. So, so I know it's a new format that you're exploring. I'm also keen to sort of look into sharing my whatever learnings that I've had. So yeah, just to add what Krishna told me about, about the introduction that he gave. Yeah, so I actually started my career as a engineer who went to Infosys, worked there, and then went to UK. So this was actually the period when the recession was about to begin, like 2008, the Lehman Brothers effect that was happening. But for me, it was personally, I was becoming very comfortable at work because right after college, like after going to this company called Infosys, knowing their story, what they did, how they built a big company. So there's always this inherent curiosity to go and try something new. And if I don't start at 25, 26, I'll get married and get settled in London. I was really getting scared with the comfort that I was going through, because the outsourcing was also increasing significantly because of all things that was happening outside, that the Lehman fall, all of that was happening. So the banks were actually increasing the outsourcing business. So yeah, I just put papers one fine day, and I think exactly around this time, September 2018, sorry 2008. So this is like long 13 years back. So 13 years is a long time. So came back. So I think yeah, one small correction, that what he said is like Venkat's brother was running a HR consulting firm at that time. Like my current co-founder's brother, he just started like something, and then he was just leaving that for some other reason. So I just came in. Okay, I thought, let me just run this company and see. Let me just learn how to run a company first. So that was the starting point. So the first 1.5 years was running a recruitment firm. Like I remember hiring for companies like Unmetric, which at that time was called as eyesandfeet.com. So the early engineers of Unmetric was contributed by us. And then this company called Wembu Technologies, which again is a sister concern of Zoho, like Shekhar Wembu, who's the CEO. So we were recruiting for them as well. And then there was this companies like Bank Bazaar and so on. So that's how my real entrepreneurship started. I think at that time, a very popular company was Mafa Randstad. So that was something that we were looking after, looking upon to see, okay, can we build a company like that on the recruitment space? And then that eventually moved towards skill development, because there was this whole thing on unemployability of Indian engineers. They are getting graduated, but they don't have the skills to get employed and so on. So that's where I ventured into this training space, went to a lot of colleges, and that eventually got into us to start Tude Circle as well, right? So we were doing a lot of physical on-premise coaching to students, and then we said, let's try this online as well. Let's start something as Tude Circle. So the Tude Circle actually happened after 2-3 years of the initial explorative phase of my life. And then, yeah, so that went for like few years. Eventually, Klenty happened around 2015, 2016 is when we started Klenty. So yeah, so it's a long story. I'm just making it short so that I don't want to make it more boring for you guys. We can focus on the context of this session more. Yeah, so I think I'm done with the introduction, so we can take this forward on the next steps, Miguel and Krishna.
Yeah, I think while the folks registered in itself, they have asked a couple of questions. The first one was, I think, from Sadhana, I guess, right? So how did you see the sales function maturing at every milestone, at every ARR goal or milestone, right? And what are the 3 critical aspects of a winning sales team? So that's the first question for you.
Okay, cool. So I think, so this question, let me, so for the audience, my answers would be more relative to the way that an SMB sales function work, right? So obviously, the audience that we were catering to were all SMBs from the beginning. So which means my answers would be more relative to that kind of model. If you start, like I think you mentioned about enterprise marketing, enterprise sales that you had earlier, that would be completely different. So it means it really goes in a different model. Whereas in an SMB sales function, where again, so there's he also mentioned about a company which is Bootstrap. So Klenty is a Bootstrap company. So then what the model itself is, we go with the MVP model. We build the minimum viable product, and then we go and look at for market through inbound channels, right? So which means the marketing itself works in such a way that we'll go and answer queries in platforms where people have asked about how do I do sales follow-ups, how do I do sales outreach and so on. So that's how we generate interest and look at the people who are showing intent to solve a problem. How do you direct them towards your product and bring a certain audience that you can convert? For example, let's say if you're just starting to build a product now for a particular problem, and your target is SMB, and if somebody from IBM comes and asks you, can you solve my problem? Yes, we solve the sales problem, but we cannot solve such a big organization's problem right now, right? So it means you have to be very clear on, if you look at say, if you create a pyramid of all companies across the world, you know whether you're targeting the bottom of the pyramid or top of the pyramid, right? So you need to be very clear from the beginning, which is what like the Freshworks model or Zoho model. They've always focused on the bottom of the pyramid, which is the SMB model, and then they go after structuring their marketing engine, sales engine, all of that, like even the product itself. So only if you know who's the audience, like in movie industry, they say A class, B class, C class audience, right? So if you know clearly that you're making a movie for C class, then you obviously don't release in more theaters in Chennai or the higher market. So you really understand to which audience you're targeting, and then you really structure everything else around that. So that way our sales function. So to answer the question now, I'm just going to specific of the question. So the maturity is like, so today, even we call ourselves as an early stage company, right? So we've been around for 6 years now, but we're still in the early stage. But within that early stage, there are like, I would say 2-3 stages. So one is the evangelical stage, right? So where you've got the product out, and so you're seeing some interest, people coming in, and you're also running some outbound campaigns targeting very small businesses just like you, who have like the founder running sales function, founder running the entire GTM function. So the goal is to get some audience try your product and then seek feedback. And if they're interested to take next steps in terms of, okay, I see value of using this product, let me start paying for it. So that is the simplest goal that you start with, in the sense that how do we be more evangelical and try to seek interest from the audience who are coming into the system, or you're reaching out, and see whether they're gaining value. So because obviously as a SMB product, you're providing this freemium or free trial business model. Again, the business model itself helps you to structure your sales function and even the GTM function overall. For example, today a lot of companies start with no pricing, right? So um, like our competitors itself, the players who are targeting enterprise market outreach and sales stuff, they have a pricing page where there will be no pricing mentioned, which means from day one they're very clear that they're not going after the bottom of the pyramid. They're probably going after the middle of the pyramid or the top of the pyramid kind of companies, where the company has a matured sales team and so on. So the target audience itself is that way. Whereas in SMB sales, like if you see Zoho CRM, if you see Freshdesk product, they always have had a freemium product where it's like a free forever product version. So which means their model itself is like bring a lot of people for free thing, make them familiar of the system. They will really have an inherent trust getting developed, and then they'll eventually convert. Likewise, for example, companies like Slack. So Slack again has been a freemium product. So you can use the free version forever, but eventually when you think that you need to use the paid version, then they will convert. So that's a completely different model where there is no sales required. Like, so we were using Slack for 4 years, and when COVID happened, we had to say that, okay, let's pay for it. Nobody from their sales team reached out to us and said, right? So we know that we have to buy it because we are used to it for 48 months. So that, which means no, the model itself is different. It's a freemium model. Okay. Whereas in the free trial model is what is most Indian SMB companies are really tapping on. So the free trial model is you give the product for say 14 days free trial or 21 days free trial or 1 month free trial, make them use all the key features that solves their problem. So it's actually the solutions that you're offering as features for whatever problems that they're coming with. So it could be 1 problem, 2 problem, 3 problems, and they're able to solve that. And they see that I can solve this problem every month by using this solution. They start paying at the end of the trial or a month or so, right? So that way, in the free trial model, SMB sales. So how it worked for us, the first 20K MRR was completely evangelical, which means one of the founders have to sell, right? So really, to understand the audience who's coming in and to get more focus to us, which audiences we should be, selling more. That initial evangelical phase, you have to really be, listening to the audience straight away, the prospects straight away. You talk to them, you convert them. So the first phase was more like evangelical. So where I was completely, like before Klenty, I used to be a complete social person. I used to attend all events, startup events and so on. Because our audience was primarily US and non-US, I had to be completely opposite of what I was in my early entrepreneurial experience. So I had to stay in the night, work, talk to the customers in the US. So that way, it was completely evangelical at that stage. The second stage was more explorative, right? So in the sense, so you've got say 200 customers, 300 customers who are already paying you, but you have to go and find out of these 200, 300 customers, who are your actual audience who's likely to use again and again, month on month. Because some people will, because the model is like you pay on a monthly subscription, right? So just like how you pay for Netflix every month, how you pay for any OTT platforms every month, you can always cancel, right? So it's easy as you think, but it actually gets complex later if you don't retain them for a longer term, right? So it's easy to acquire that customer in some way, as in to sell, to make that transactional sale, but to actually make them use again and again, you will know that out of a certain audience, a smaller group of audience is what will continue to use your product again and again, because they have an inherent need. Which means, for example, in our case, we are a sales engagement tool. This is for more towards sales, like full-time salespeople, right? So SDRs, AEs, sales managers or account managers kind of person, where they have a focused role and they have to use some tool to achieve their goal continuously, right? So end of the day for them, I have to use 4-5 tools, but ultimately I have to hit my goal so that I save my job for the next year. So that's how they look at it, right? So they don't look at it as I'm going to use this tool, so this tool will help me succeed because I was not successful earlier. It's not like that. They know that they would need certain tools together for the plan that they already have, and to make it work, they're going to use these tools, right? Third point is, so I mentioned about evangelical phase and then explorative phase. The third phase is the ICP phase, in the sense that by the time you hit, people call it product market fit. Sometimes the new terms that is coming now is sales market fit. By that stage, you should be knowing who's your ideal customer profile, right? So that's where the the maturity of an early stage company comes in. As a SaaS company, you end up reaching that ICP phase where we've been serving a bigger audience. Now I think we should really focus on this ideal customer persona and go after that kind of customers more and more, which means you can serve them better, build products, features better, and retain them for longer time. So that's the third phase. I think we crossed that phase sometime last year. Around this time last year is when we actually crossed that phase of getting into that ICP phase. Now we're really more focused and structured as a company to know what kind of audience our product serves, the problem that we solve, and we have to get more and more such audience into the system. That way we know we can retain them for the longer term as well. So this answers, I think in some way, it answers your first question, I guess.
So Praveen, there is a sub question to that also. What were the 3 critical aspects of the winning sales team? Like, what are the 3, like what pitfalls to avoid, and what are the 3, biblical aspects that you need to have for a winning sales team?
Okay, so I would say the first in SMB sales, you have to go bottom up. In the sense that, so like what has happened in the past, I've heard stories of some companies who are like, they end up hiring a senior salesperson on the day one itself without having full clarity on which audience, like the phases that I was saying, the evangelical phase, explorative phase, and ICP phase. Without having going through that phase, they would end up hiring a really senior person who's had different sort of experience. So for example, if you go and hire an enterprise sales guy for SMB sales, you may actually backfire that. So the first critical aspect is avoid those big mistake of hiring the wrong person, right? So if you can make small mistakes, making multiple small mistakes really works, but if you make big mistakes, it really hurts big time. So I've heard a lot of stories of SaaS companies doing that mistake of hiring a really senior person from the beginning, and they it really mismatches the need at that point of time, so the stage that you are in, and then it ends up really messing up their function. So as a critical aspect for a winning sales team, as I think if one of the founders is involved, really understand where you're starting. So of course, if it differs in some way, if you are, say, we're getting funded as we start the company, we're raising $1 million funding right from the day one, and now we want to get started faster. Even there, I think it's end of the day, you have to use your resources in the right way. So if you put the right resource in the right place, you can use it in the right way. But if you do the mistake of hiring a wrong person at the early stage, it really affects, right? So secondly, so that way it means the first point is be evangelical, right? So one founder has to be involved in the sales right from day one as a small company. Second aspect is, initially you may not have specific roles, right? So for example, when we started, we didn't have one person doing only one job. So it means in the initial sales team, like I used to do support, I used to do sales, I used to do demos. So it's all, today we have like multi sub functions for all of this. But in the initial page, you may need to hire people who can do 2 things or 3 things that is part of handling the customers, right? So that's secondly, more important when you're looking to, which means as whoever is the person who's leading the sales team has to be guiding the person who's working along with you to be involved in not just sales but also in support, not just in sales but also in post sale onboarding and so on. So that is a second part, which is again critical, like because some when you set the wrong expectations, then you will not get what you want with people, right? So that's important. Thirdly, I think the most important thing is really listening to the customers, right? So because you're starting the company or you're releasing the product with certain assumptions that we are solving this problem for the audience, but the audience may actually come and surprise you saying that my problem is this, and this is a bigger problem for me, so this is my bigger gap that you should be solving, right? For example, like when we started initially, we were projecting the company, I mean the product as a cold emailing software. That's how it used to be, the like 2015 2016 days. So it's just cold emailing solution at that time. So we had both audience of sales as well as marketing coming and using the platform, right? So because this email marketing is a very generic term that a lot of people use, even marketers kind of not differentiate what is required for a sales function as a solution and then marketing function as a solution. So marketing is more towards generating awareness, reaching out to larger audience, keeping them updated on the progress. So we've had people coming from marketing teams coming and use Klenty. At the early stage, we were inviting everybody, but as we listen to more and more customers, you know that this is not the right audience that you would want to have in the longer term. You want more salespeople use our product. So the third critical part is to actually listen to your audience, really understand which problem that we're solving better and focused, instead of just selling to everybody, right? So if you keep selling to everybody who is coming, that again will backfire at a later stage, because we're talking about post-sale customer support, post-sale customer engagement. That becomes difficult if you continue to sell to a broader audience where they're coming for wrong use case. So while as a salesperson, the sales guy might be interested, okay, let me go and get the money because it's coming in. But after you cross a stage, you have to be like the ICP stage that I said. Once you get to that ICP stage, you have to be very clear that which audience that we are serving and who we really bring in as customer, who we tell them that this is not the right solution for you. I'll recommend solution B for you to go and try. And this is how you can achieve goals inside Klenty, and this is how you can achieve your goals inside something else. So which means the third part is really understanding, listening. When I say listening, it's not just hearing, really going deep and understand their pain. What is the pain that they're trying to solve, and do our solution really solve that pain? Don't sell the solution just for the sake of it. Sell it because it is actually solving that problem. Okay, so it's like you have to help them really understand that this solution really solves their problem. If it really does, then that's where the sales function really gets into a maturity level. So
Thanks, Praveen.
okay, so there's another question.
I think this question was from Kabir. So how often are you evolving the playbook, and what contribution do your teammates make to the playbook?
So can you elaborate on the question? So
yeah, sure. Hi, Praveen. Yeah, so essentially, I mean, I lead partnerships here at AirMeet, and we work a lot on building and evolving playbooks so that as new team members come in, they have context on what's kind of been done, what the experiments are that we've run. Also, you spoke a little bit about ICPs, right? So also, documenting how ICPs are evolving, where we're seeing success, where we're not seeing success. So do you guys actively work on putting together a playbook? Is that something that in your experience has been a documented process? And how do my question more is, how are different team members depending on where they are inside your team, in the inside sales team, and what is the kind of contribution and feedback you get from them that kind of evolves maybe the ICP or the kind of communication and tactics that you use to approach customers?
Yeah, so I think you touched upon it. So basically, I think once you hit the ICP is when you get really 100% clarity on really setting up multiple playbooks for different persona. So today, we have, as I was saying that initially, we had one person doing multiple things, but today we have AEs, we have pre-sales, we have inbound SDRs, we have outbound SDRs, and then there is customer success, and there is customer support.
Yeah.
Right? So these are all the customer-facing team where we have completely different functions, and we are able to clearly set goals for each team separately. So it's like a soccer team, right? So the striker's goal is to hit. I mean, once the ball comes to them, so they just have to convert them to a goal, right? So that's the AE's function. So whereas the midfielders, again, they maneuver the ball and send it to the forward. So that's more pre-sales who do the demoing of the product and so on. So they handle it. They don't have revenue goals, but their focus is on giving good product demos as such to the audience that is coming in for the solution. Whereas inbound SDR, again, their focus is to really generate the pass for the midfielders and the forwards who are out there waiting for the balls to come and go. Right. So we are able to really define specific roles. So to answer your question, I think the playbook has evolved significantly in the last 1 year in terms of what each team does in terms of their goals and how do we continuously improve for each of it. So in terms of contributions, essentially, it requires a lot of pipeline efficiency improvement, in the sense that, so you have different stages that you have set in your CRM, but every month we go and change stages. It's so happened that we go and so I'll sometimes I'll go and ask my sales team, so should we add one stage now on this, because you're seeing something not moving forward. So and a lot of times they also come with their input, saying that, so we have one stage where a lot of deals are getting stuck. Should we actually just split them into 2 stages and have different messaging for this stage and different messaging for this stage? So because our product Klenty is a sales engagement tool, so and we have good integration with one CRM where at every stage level you can run a specific cadence. Like when I say cadence, it's a playbook in such a way. Right? So what should I do if somebody comes to this stage? What should be my message look like? What should be my next follow-up should look like? What should be my next call should look like? So we actually define. So we have about 40-50 cadences right now for the inbound model itself. For something comes to this stage, automatically a specific cadence will start. Some of it will be automated emails from the SDR or AE. Some of it will be automated tasks that will come into their daily task list, and they will start executing it. So it's really setting up multiple sequence strategy for every stage in your pipeline, and be able to really make it more efficient as you go forward. So pre-ICP stages, pre-ICP stage in our business, it was probably we were maintaining everything in one single pipeline. Today we have, within inbound pipeline, we have an inbound SDR pipeline, we have a demo request pipeline, we have a real opportunity pipeline, and then so it's we've really structured into 4 or 5 pipelines where you clearly differentiate who has the highest interest of taking the next steps and so on. So
excellent, thank you for that. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
All right. So we have the next question from Krishna.
How long was sales taken care by the founders at Klenty? That's Klenty. Okay, so yeah, so before hiring the first sales. The question is from who? Sorry,
Krishna.
Krishna. Okay. Yeah. So I think up until 20, so we started. We got our first customer in 2016 March 17th, I guess. Up until 2018 May June, I guess, it was all founder driven sales. That's when we hired a first support slash demo person. We didn't even call that as a sales role, because so for me it's like, if you as a founder is not able to sell the product which is like 3 years old, then how will a new person who will just join in 1 month will start selling right from day one? So that's why we didn't hire a salesperson. We hired a person who would assist in demoing and supporting. But eventually we'll train him to do sales. That was the original thing. That did happen. Like in 3-4 months, we could convert him to a salesperson as well. So it took, say, 2.5 years actually to really get one salesperson from the day that we started. So
Got it. Yeah. And
I actually had a follow-up. I didn't mean to hit it. I hit the question at the halfway point. So when do you actually know that it is the right time to move from a founder-led sales to that we actually have enough in the pipeline to go about setting up a sales team?
yeah, I think so. Some companies say 10K MRR is one kind of milestone that you can set it up for. The time that for you to hire a sales rep. I think it anywhere between, I would say, 10K to 30K, because for example, if you're selling high ticket items, then your number of customers will be lesser, right? So you may still want to get 100 customers before you actually hire somebody. Okay, so it's anywhere between 10 to 30K MRR, depending on the kind of customers that you're really targeting. You can start looking at hiring people. That again, so this is again purely from a bootstrapped business that we are in. Whereas somebody who's funded right from day one, they may even start at 5K MRR. They'll go and hire a salesperson. So it depends on how you're building the company.
all right. Yeah. Thanks, Praveen. And we have the next question from Arvind. Arvind, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Praveen. This is Arvind. One more ex-Infosys person here.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Now my question is, when I listen to all the sales discussions related to the SaaS industry, two aspects always come into prominence. One is the product market fit and the ICP. And I see most of the people saying that ICP has to be defined from day one. And in your approach, I saw that it was a gradual progression, and it seemed very logical that you slowly arrived at your ICP. So is it actually possible to define an ICP from day one and, then maybe tweak, or like your approach where, it is more of a natural progression? You might have an idea regarding your target customers, but then, you take your time to finally define your ICP. What is your view on that?
Good question. No, so I think this there are two parts of answer to this. First is the evolution of SaaS industry itself, right? So today it's a really mature industry. It's almost commoditized. If you go and see for every problem, there is some way, there is some solution coming up and so on. So which means there is a maturity of product development itself today to begin with ICP, right? So compared to what it was 10 years back, compared to where it was 5 years back. So there's an evolutionary angle that really, like today, for example, there's a company called Rocket Lane, right? So the company itself is getting built from ICP right from day one, because they have really seen that problem at their work when they were going through on certain problem, specific problem that they know that a lot of their customers, and they as people who serve the customers, they go through that. So in that case, the ICP definition is more clearer from the early days itself. Whereas in our case, we were like building, we started by building a product, and then we had to pivot. So which means we were doing MVP model, which was an older model of building an MVP, and then eventually fine tuning the audience. And even if you look at Fresh Desk as a product, right?
Okay.
That is I would say it's a mature understanding of the market, which led to start the product. In the sense, support is not something new. Support was always like you worked in Infosys or TCS, all these companies, they know they do support, right? So they've always had some kind of support system. The primitive one is email support, right? So support function as a job has been there for like 40 years or so, I would say. Right? So which means from day one, and because Girish had this 10 years of experience of working in a really good product company like Zoho, where they have served to different audience with different products. So he actually began the company with the audience, support audience, and but they brought in a different angle. Obviously, while building the product is one thing, but really capturing the market is a completely different thing. So which they brought in together, and will Fresh Desk be able to do the same way that they built from today? May not be the same way. It will be different, right? So the market is matured now. There's a lot of companies today. So when you're listening to people today, we talk about community-led growth. Community is where you should be trying to get your audience, small communities, focused communities, and so on. But this has been there. Community-led growth is not new. It has been there in the olden days as well. So it's really not new. Just that people haven't really used that platform significantly, but it has been there. Community, like for example, we participate in SaaS Boomi, we participate in different SaaS events and so on. So if you go, like for example, All Things SaaS, if you come to this community 1 year, you get familiar with a lot of people who are coming here, and then you eventually get to know each other, and you give your both ears to listen to the problems that they're solving.
Correct.
There's the inherent trust that gets developed, right? So to answer your question, I think ICP, starting from ICP, I think is becoming more critical now. When you start today from now, the older way of MVP and waiting for a few years. If you think like Sridhar Vembu, I'm going to give my life for building this company for next 25 years, then it's different. But if you say next 5 years I have to make this work in some way, if there is a deadline that you start with, then starting with ICP really works faster.
Okay. I've just one more follow-up question. Since you mentioned it's with reference to your company, Soho and all, like what is your thought process behind being bootstrapped? And also, since this industry is mature, there's a lot of competition, tech is evolving so fast. Do you ever feel pressurized to, seek some external funding to accelerate your product development or the sales and the marketing team?
That's a question that keeps coming to us.
I do see the advantages of bootstrapped also. Like, I understand that then you are not under pressure to just go run after the sales and marketing. You also have you can also focus on, developing real quality products and, putting in the real efforts. But at the same time, obviously, there is the downside is that obviously, because this is tech is evolving so fast and it requires funding and all, somewhere there's always a danger that you might get lost, even if you have a good product. So just wanted to understand, because you are a founder, and what is your mindset regarding that?
Right. So I think I think the answer will be very relative depending on the founder persona. Like both of us are in some way are very because we are used to knowing how to use the money, right? It's at the end of the day, right? So end of the day, whether you get funding or not get funding, where you put the money is what matters. Like even if you get funding and you put the money in all wrong places, then it's not going to work, right? So it means there's 10x pressure if you get money from somebody else and you put the money in wrong place. You're actually going to screw up not just the entire company, but also the investors who's giving you the money and so on. So really knowing where to put the money on, right? So at every stage. So of course, so when your business is at some stage 1, so you should know where you should be putting money. When it is at stage 2, you should know where you should be putting money. So that's how this bootstrapping works. Bootstrapping or even for funded companies. If you are bootstrapped, you're kind of more, I would say, how do I say it? Like very strict on yourself that, okay, we need to be very careful about where you put the money. Whereas if you get funding, a lot of companies, they kind of end up spending a lot of money just by seeing other companies doing this way. Let me also go and do this way. But the more important is understand your audience. You have to, like, who your product is serving to. That is more important than that company is doing this way to generate market. But their audience could be different, right? So if your audience is persona A, you should be really focusing on that persona A, not on persona B that the company X is solving, right? So a lot of companies try to replicate that, but that really sometimes doesn't work, right? So yeah, I think to answer your question, I don't have an answer whether we should raise funding and really go faster, but we are actually using our own funding. Like every 6 months, whatever profit generates, we put the money into the company, right?
Understood.
So the excess money generated is funding the company again for growth. That's what we do. So just that we know how to generate little more excess money than how funded companies are spending a lot but generating less excess money. But yeah, I think it's the stage that we are in that we are comfortable with, but we may change as well. We don't know. But as of now, so far so good.
Understood. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Praveen.
Yeah.
All right. So I just had one question, right? So it's on the life cycle of the startups, basically. So be it any company, be it a bootstrap or a funded or any other SaaS company, at some point in time, they start moving up market, right? They might move from SMB to mid-market or mid-market to enterprise, right? So from your understanding, what are those variables that decide this up-market movement? At what point in time will the company decide to move up market? Are there any factors that decide this shift, right? So that's my question.
Okay. So like I've been listening to this popular, I don't know, some of you might have heard, Winning by Design, which is a YouTube channel run by Yako, who was like the advisor, sales mentor for Storm Ventures for like several years. So he's advised. So if we, like from my understanding, it's like at every stage you can cross $5 million of revenue. When I talked about the pyramid, so the bottom of the pyramid, so if there are like 5 layers of pyramid, you can easily crack $5 million of revenue at every stage, which means going up market one step above. So you, as you convert 5 million, you're able to easily navigate upwards. So it's like one step at a time. But if you make the move from, let's say you start from the bottom, but then you want to jump straight to the top of the pyramid, that's a big risky move, which is likely to backfire 80% of the time, because everything will be different. Your support will be different. So when you go to the top of the pyramid, it's actually services. It's not product. It's actually services you'll be doing, and product is just one part of it, right? So it means like there will be headroom for you to hit at every 5 million. You can move one step above to the next up market.
Got it. So I think I just have a follow-up question there. So as the company moves up market, right? So automatically your GTM motion changes, and you might need to realign your sales team, your marketing teams, the way you deliver support and customer success activities. What do you think are those practical difficulties here in terms of hiring, in terms of setting the direction to the team? So how would you go about that if you are going to move up market, say to a mid-market or an enterprise segment today?
You're asking as difficulties, is it?
Yeah, the practical challenges or difficulties in moving up market.
Okay, so see, I think end of the day, we're also talking about the companies revolving around the product, right? So the product is built for a certain kind of audience, or it actually currently caters to a certain kind of audience right now. So which means the functions that is surrounding that, sales, support, success, all of them are tuned to go and serve the audience with this product, right? So eventually, if the product roadmap also matures towards that audience, your success, your support, your sales, all of that will automatically move into that direction as well. So you may be able to convert some of your existing team members to cater to the larger audience, or you may even want to bring somebody who's got that experience of enterprise handling and then build a separate team around that. But the process will be different for both markets. Like you cannot execute the same process that you have for SMBs to enterprise. It'll be in enterprise or mid-market, it'll be more relationship-driven model. Like you have to be, if there are like 100 team members from the customers who are using your platform, so there's a lot of relationship involved over there than just being more transactional messaging. Like in our case, even for small customers, we are giving a lot of relationship in terms of support and so on. But as a model, if you go up market, the relationship angle becomes more critical because end of the day, like, so you're talking to people, you're trying to help them solve their problems, day-to-day problems. And to do that, you're telling them that this product will help you solve this, and how you use is going to be more critical over there.
Got it. Yeah, thanks, Praveen. And I just have one last question for this session. So, so when you got started with Klenty, right? So this was a cold calling, or a cold emailing software, right? How did you identify that problem in the first place? So is it from your general market audience? Did you talk to a lot of people, or initially you built the MVP, then let it out in the market, and then you validated the problem? So how did you go about those first 6 months or 1 year of
No, are you asking how did we actually build this product, cold email product, or
actually decided to build a product?
Yeah.
Cold email. Yeah.
Okay. Our story was like, so as Krishna was mentioning, so like I've been an entrepreneur since 2009, right? So it was like a long journey. So, and then we started this dude circle. It wasn't moving at all. So it was like a Kamal Haasan movie which came 10 years back, which should have come a little later. Which means like post that only all these other companies became popular, educational tech companies. But so I used to attend a lot of conferences and so on, like this NASCOM product conclaves. Every year I used to go to Bangalore just to go and understand what's happening around. Venkat was an investment banker. His point of view comes in a different way. He'll go and research about companies, what's coming out and so on. So at around 2015, we kind of started thinking that let's try to build some knowledge repository as a product. So that's how the name Klenty came in, right? Plenty of knowledge was the acronym that we were trying to say. Like Klenty, replace P and put K there, and Klenty. So because I was in education space, and so some knowledge angle, and then so if you have to take that in a corporate business, so we were trying to build an MVP for knowledge repository from emails. How do we, bring all the conversations between person working in company to his clients, and how can we bring that as a knowledge repository? So that was our original idea, and that's how we built the first version of our Klenty. And as we spoke to a lot of companies, so this product would serve for companies where there are at least like 50 employees or so who share, 100 employees or so who share their inbox, and we are able to extract knowledge from them. So it was very difficult for us to convince companies. While we were able to convince the CEOs and the head of the companies, but at the low level, for employees to share their inbox, they were not feeling happy about it, right? So it was all they felt that we'll read all their emails and so on. So that was like 2015. So complete washout that year. We built the product. 2015 July, August we released. We realized that nobody's gonna. Well, everybody is saying it's great, but nobody's gonna start using it. That's when we pivoted after getting feedback from Krish from ChargeBee, Lux from Unmetric, like few people that we were talking to at that time. So the feedback that we got was either do it for one specific department, either for HR or for sales. Because doing it for entire company and making everybody to use is really difficult at the early stage. We wanted to do something very specific, use the same technology, use it for one specific department. So we chose sales because we thought sales is more closer to revenue function, whereas HR is considered as a cost function. So, and obviously you can't charge more also there. So we said, let's change that to sales function. So we rebuilt that in some way and released the version in 2016, January, February. We actually demoed that product in Tiruvallur, the startup Saturday. Like I think it's part of startup Saturday. Vijay Anand, I think one of you guys may be knowing. So that's where we actually gave a demo, and somebody from ChargeBee also was present at that time, who was coordinating this event and so on. Yeah. So like I think from where we started to where it actually ended up, it was completely unplanned.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting story. Maybe you should document it somewhere, right? So for people to know actually, how Klenty was built. And
yeah, just internally when new people join every a lot of people have joined, so we kind of share the story of how it actually came in.
Got it. And
sorry, go ahead.
And being bootstrapped was an added advantage at this point for you to pivot from one type of product to another to go much more vertical focused, right? So being bootstrapped helped you at that point in time, to take freely these decisions.
Yeah, I mean, worst cases we'll have to go back to do something that we were already doing, right? So whether you're bootstrapped or funded at that stage, you're still trying to find out one niche audience that you can try to solve the problem for, right? So for us, it was I think the guidance that we got from these people as feedback was critical over there, right? So from their point of view, they're just giving some thoughts on how this can evolve. But that was actually useful for us to take it back and then really convert that into a more marketable product than just a product. Because end of the day, only if somebody is ready to pay for the product, that's when you're saying that there is market for this product. So whether bootstrapped or funded, even if we had got funding at that time, we would have obviously been conservative on spending the money wisely instead of just spraying significantly and just losing everything at one go. So
got it. Yeah, thanks, Praveen. Yeah, Krishna, you were about to say something. Just go ahead.
No, I was just telling how Klenty's first customer acquisition was also an interesting story.
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure if how much time Praveen has or if he wants to touch upon it, but maybe if we can keep it short, if it's okay with him.
No, yeah. So I think what happened, we built. So as I was saying, we gave the demo in Tiruvallur for a small group of like 15, 20 people. And then the next month there was this event SaaSter that was happening in the US. So we did get some angel kind of money, for which Venkat, my co-founder, he with some of it he went to the event in the US that was happening SaaSter, just to see what's happening really there. So, and along with that, few Indian companies had visited, like ChargeBee and all of them had visited. ChargeBee was trying our product. They were still not our paid customer yet. So they were helping us build the product alongside. So after the event, we got a list of all participants who came for that event. So I ran a cold email campaign to all the participants, and it landed to one of the CEOs of a company in Australia who had attended the event in the Bay Area. So that CEO forwarded it to the sales team lead, and he came for a demo the next day itself. So for him, he was actually looking to implement the software at that time. He was comparing us. I mean, he was checking 2-3 other tools, and then he looked at Klenty. So he came for a demo, and like in 3 days, they actually ended up paying for us. It was completely shock to us, in the sense that's when we released the product, and then we were about to test by keying in our credit card to check whether this whole payment is working or not. By the time our testing team tested, he actually ended up paying, and he was the first customer / tester of the payment system itself. So that's how we got the first customer.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay, I think Sadhana has one question.
Yeah, I think we can probably wrap it off with this one, right? I'll go ahead and read it. So as one of the founders and head of sales, how does a typical day at work looks like for you? It's said that your daily work rituals really shapes the future of the company. What are those rituals?
Like, I think you have to find time. Finding time out of the chaos is one critical thing for founder. Like, so there'll be a lot of things going on. So one side, obviously, because you're leading sales, suddenly you'll get a call from some prospect at some random time. You have to address that as well. So you're completely dependent on the prospect's timings than your structure that you would want to have. So in the initial days, it's really difficult to have a structure, but you will still want to have like 1 or 2 hours of me time to really go and think. So is everything going in the right direction or so or not? Because that's the only way you can go and look back whether are we spending enough time in the right function, right? So that's important. But typical days, like a lot of chaos. You have to really maneuver through the chaos, yet find time to focus on thinking and looking at working on the right things or planning for the right things for the future and so on. So
Got it. Thanks, Praveen.
thank you.
Yeah, I think I don't see any questions as well. So I think we can go ahead and wrap it up here. So thank you, Praveen. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you. Hopefully, the answers were okay. I mean, I was just
absolutely.
Yeah.
It was super insightful. We don't really hear from a lot of Bootstrap SaaS founders who also run the sales function, right? So most of the news you see is about how funded companies did this, that, who came from IM backgrounds and whatnot. I think even with Builders, some news article, they were like 3 IM grads sold the company and made this. They studied in IM 30 years ago, boss.
So I think,
Right.
yeah, like for me, because of my previous entrepreneurial stints, this hunger for really going out and helping the audience and sell was really high, right? When we started a SaaS product, because so like if you're a founder, you have to be a sales guy, right? You have to go and sell your story. Like we're all talking about storytelling. It means you're actually trying to convey your story to the audience that you want to sell. I mean, don't use the word sell. The audience you want to serve to, right? So you have to tell it in the right way, but it has to be authentic and genuine. So that's more important.
Very true. So I think I'm not sure if Praveen still does night shifts. He usually, back when I used to work, he used to wrap up his work, say Saturday 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So
Thankfully, I've come down to 2 a.m. now because we have like last 1.5 years, it's come down to 2 a.m. So which means I'm able to spend a little more time but I've like it's been 5-6 years that I've seen sun in the morning 6 a.m.
So thank you. So special thanks for doing that last night and turning up for this today. That was definitely useful. So actually we have like nearly some 9 or 10 people who has pinged us for the recording, right? So during the course of this, so I think we'll have a lot more people listening to this at a later point of time.